Christine Burt. I'm the Research Manager for Birmingham Community Healthcare. I don't like this, it's echoing a lot. Is it echoing too much? It's okay. Okay. As I said, I'm Christine Burt from Birmingham Community Healthcare, and I'll be trying to make sure things move along today. Just before we start, I'd like to do a bit of housekeeping. The toilets are out in the foyer by the reception area. I'd like to identify the badges. I'm not sure if it's worked the way it should do, but it should be that you should all have a name badge, and if you are from an SME, you should have a lime green sticker. So if you haven't, perhaps you ought to change that at the coffee break. If you are NHS, you should have a yellow sticker. If you are other, you will have an orange sticker, and if you are academia, you will have a pink sticker. Just so that we, because of the size of the group, unfortunately, we don't have the time to do introductions around the room. So it was just one way we thought we would be able to start identifying people. I'd like to also point out the posters on the wall. You will see that there are a number of posters. Please take the time in the coffee breaks to go and have a wander around and have a look. The whole point of this event today is about the challenges that we have. So what we've tried to do is put up a potted summary of what's already going on in that area so that you can at least see what's happening in that particular area already. So please take the time to have a look at those. We will be videoing the whole event. So if there is anybody who has an objection to being on a video that will, perhaps portions of it, if not all of it, will be on YouTube, then could you please, Hamid, could you wave to us, please? Could you please speak to Hamid in the breaks, and we'll see what we can do about eradicating you from the video. Right, on to today. Welcome to the Birmingham Community Healthcare Healthy Village Workshop. This is the first of two events. This first event is solely around the Healthy Village concept. The second event that we're running on the 27th of April, it's an early morning event, will be about other healthcare challenges from BCHC. This event is quite packed, the agenda is quite tight, so I'm going to be quite strict with the timing of those who come up. So I have my colour code here. At 5 minutes before the end, you'll see me frantically waving. No, you'll see me hold this up, and then when you're ready to finish, I will give you about 2-3 minutes tops, and then I'll start frantically waving my red card for you to stop, so that we can move on and keep to time. We have a packed programme, as I said, and I'd like to firstly start off by introducing our first speaker, which is Dr. Clive Thursfield, and he's the Research Director for the Trust. Welcome, Clive.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to take just a very short amount of time to introduce to you a conceptual framework for the morning, because it's important that I think we get the right mindset for this event. So the question that I pose is, what type of society do you want to live in? Now, what I'd like to do is leave you with a picture in your minds, which is going to be a framework for the rest of the morning. So the question is the sort of society that we want to live in described by this picture? Oh, that's clever. Or that picture. Or is it described by this sort of picture? Now, to be honest, I don't know what that guy up at the top has done, but ignore that bit. But this is a picture of, as you can obviously tell, a picture of when society as it was some time ago, characterized very differently from this sort of image. These sorts of images. This sort of image is portraying loneliness and isolation. This sort of image is portraying for us a different way in which we thought about community. And here's another one. Now, with the eagle eyes there, we'll see that this is a spoof, because we can see Miranda Hart in there, and that's interesting, because what we're doing here with this one is we're bridging the gap. So what we want a society that is cohesive and supportive of each other, and we want it to be in a modern era rather than in a World War era. So that's the picture, the conceptual framework I would like to leave you with. Healthy Villages is about this conceptual framework. It's about the way in which community works together, and it's about not being in this sort of place. And you will hear as we move on the detail of that. That's all I want to say. And so we're going to move immediately on to introduce Peter Axon, who is the Finance Director for our Trust, come to talk to us about what it says on there. Thank you, Peter.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. So away from the sort of conceptual stuff to the brass tacks, I suppose, as the Finance Director, you'd expect me to get into that. Just a couple of statistics before. I think I'm going to talk briefly and then I'm going to open it up to questions. I think that's only fair, given the fact that I'm only going to be here for about 10 minutes. So, and these are the statistics that I really don't want to hold in my head because they're really, really horrible. Okay, so, and I Googled this morning, so I'm technologically skilled, partially, but not well. So first of all, Q1 2015, the UK government debt, 1.56 trillion. 81.58% of GDP, and the servicing of that debt costs 43 billion quid a year. So that's a really, really big mortgage that, okay, it doesn't really matter in my view which party comes in the next couple of months. The reality is that number ain't going to go down anytime soon. It's massive. So yes, there will be a lot of party rhetoric flying around, but it is a huge challenge. It can't be underestimated. NHS budget, 115 billion. In part, I would say a contributor to that is the increase in the NHS budget, which went from, and I quote, 2003-04, it was at 64 billion, and as at now, it's circa 115 billion. So that's around a 5% increase each year during a time when austerity kicked in hugely and GDP was going in completely the opposite direction. So although the NHS is an absolutely fantastic and wonderful thing in my view, and you wouldn't be surprised at me standing here saying that, the truth is we are going to struggle as a country, as a group of people to afford the NHS going forward at that kind of rate of increase. It's not complicated. So what does that, I suppose, at a micro level mean for us in BCHC? Well, over that similar period, it's slightly less than that, the last sort of 4 years or so, I think we've genuinely delivered savings of something in the region of 4.5% to 5% each year. And that's cash out. So that's not doing a load more work, getting a good amount of margin on that and offsetting the efficiency challenge. That's actual people and cash out, which equates to something like 30 or 40 million pounds that we've taken out of the business, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Now we've done that through two things. Firstly, when the real challenges kicked in, the austerity challenge, and the NHS had that challenge put to it, you've got to save, then yes, okay, there's a bit of low-hanging fruit. There's always going to be a bit of low-hanging fruit. It's just the reality of stuff, yeah? The second opportunity that we had was we acquired about £90 million worth of business about 3 or 4 years ago, and that provided us with synergy opportunity. We're now in a place where all of that's gone. It's a very, very different challenge. And I think, to be honest, over the last few years, we've felt the pressure on that. And I think most NHS organisations that don't benefit from growth and have to deliver efficiency through cash out are feeling the pressure. And over 50% of NHS providers in the country are in deficit. So I'm really pleased to say I'm in the minority as Finance Director and I've still got my job. But if we don't do something differently pretty soon, then I won't be paying my mortgage because I won't have a job. So we have to do something very different going forward. And what does the challenge look like? Again, I don't think it matters which party's going to get in the next couple of months. The efficiency challenge is going to be probably at least 2.5%. Possibly 3 to 3.5% each year. And again, that's not growth margin offset, that's absolute cash terms out. So if you multiply that by 5, in really simple terms, that's 12 to 13% efficiency that we need to deliver by circa 2020. We're about 250 million turnover, so if you do the numbers, it comes to nearly 30 million quid, 5,000 workforce, so it equates to circa 600-700 posts out. So whichever way you look at it, it's a really, really big challenge. And although we've done incredibly well to date, I think what we've got to do going forward has got to be totally different. Now, I suppose the last thing I'll say before I move on to any questions is I think that we've got the right workforce in the organisation. I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't think that. I'd be getting another job, I'd be doing something else, because our workforce essentially are the people that will deliver the change for us. I think what we do need, however, is an injection of enthusiasm, an injection of ideas, an injection of transformation support and skills to deliver the next 5 years. And of course, within that comes the innovation agenda, the technical agenda, doing things fundamentally different. The workforce is incredibly skilled and we're a wonderful group of people, but at the heart of us, we're nurses. Yeah, there's a few accountants, but we're mainly nurses. So, we naturally, we won't have those skills to do that cutting edge innovation. So we absolutely need your help. And I suppose that's where today comes in and the next few months comes in. But I do think, I started with some really negative stuff. Finance director stands up here, gives some really bad numbers. Let's end with the good stuff. Yeah, the reality is we can achieve this. I'm convinced we can achieve it, but we do need help to do it. And I think today is a fantastic first step to get there. So thank you again for all coming along and helping us out, as it were. Any questions? Oh, go on. You want to. I mean, the reality is that, I'm more than happy to be contacted by email or phone at any point. So if you'd like to come and have a chat with me, reflecting on today or the next month or so's work, then please do. My door's always open. So contact me or my PA, Donna Marie Britton. So I'll ask one final time. Are there any questions? Absolute stunned silence. The numbers obviously did it. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I thought he said he was. But
Well, we're just wondering whether the next speaker's here.
one of our speakers isn't here yet. So I think what we'll do is flip the programme.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So Andrew,
I'll just go and
I don't think Andrew Coward's here yet. And so I think what we'll have to do is skip and then come back to it later. So we're going to see if we can get Ashley Murtagh to come forward. Oh, here he is. Now, I'd like to welcome... Oh, is he here? Hi, Andrew. Would you like to come now? Okay, please. Okay, thank you, Ashley. Can I invite Andrew Coward to come forward? And as you can see, he's the chair of the NHS Birmingham South, CCG. Welcome. And,
Is there a roving mic?
No, I don't believe... Hold on, let's see if it's working.
Testing.
I'll get it sorted.
Yeah.
The orange, the red light flashes, then it should go green, but it says red.
Testing.
Testing. That's better. Okay, we're on. Sorry, I can't stand still at a podium. Whoops.
If you move away from that one.
Yeah, is that a bit better? Well, good morning, everyone.
You keep going, Andrew, and I'll try and sort it out.
Could you hear me at the back? Fine. That's a lot better for me. So my name's Andrew Powd. I'm the clinical chair of Birmingham South Central CCG. We cover a population of about 300,000 citizens in Birmingham. If you know Birmingham, we start at the southern end around Longbridge, Kings Norton. We move through kind of Selly, Northfield, and then we move east through Sparkhill, Sparkbrook, up the Stratford Road, essentially. So we cover I suppose, the more deprived outer rim of Birmingham and the more deprived inner part of Birmingham. In fact, out of interest, of the 211 CCGs in the country, we represent the 12th most deprived CCG. So that's a little bit about our CCG. I've been very proud to be the kind of co-chair of the Healthy Villages project for the last couple of years with Councillor Ian Ward, and I think we've made some significant progress. I suppose I'd like to start my comments by asking ourselves the question, what is the context of where we're at? Because you always have to kind of springboard off that, don't you? And the context of where we're at is very well known. And I don't think I'm going to say anything original, but the NHS, I suppose, it's a little bit of a kind of mixed blessing at the moment, isn't it? Right across the whole of the NHS, there is unprecedented demand. Now, for instance, from my general practice perspective, I know that because I still work as a GP, and I cannot, I think, exaggerate how my working life has changed just within a very short period of time. The surgery opens at 7 o'clock every morning. I'm often there at 6:30, and you're working. It's not. We often work 12-hour days, don't we? But it's just the relentless pace. It's difficult to find time, to do anything other than see patients. It's just dum. The public appear to have an insatiable appetite for GP appointments. It's remarkable, isn't it, that there are 350 million GP consultations in England alone in any one given year. 350 million, and the figure is going up all the time. We often hear about the crisis in A&E, and that's absolutely right. In comparison, there are 21 million A&E attendances every year in England. So you can see the vast majority of the workload is still very much in the community. So demand is going up, and you'll read in the press that is unsustainable. I think that is true. But I suppose we also have to add in, and I would quote the Commonwealth Fund at this point. It might seem a little bit nostalgic to do it, even though the report was published in July 2014, where it very, I think, accurately described that the NHS is the best healthcare system in the world. It looked at all our comparator countries, Australia, Germany, Scandinavia. I mean, countries that normally beat us, whether it's at cricket or in a better kind of social service environment or in football. But in health, we absolutely knocked spots off all our comparator countries. I think in the 12 areas that we were judged, we came top in 10. The one that we particularly struggled in was with regard to unhealthy lifestyles, and there's no surprise there. I suppose there was a report published, I think, last week, saying that the UK might be the 5th richest economy in the world, and ranked 27th when it came to healthy lifestyles. So I suppose it's a bit of a mixed blessing, that's what I'm saying, isn't it? That the NHS is judged as the best healthcare system in the world by external auditors of its performance. And the other thing to throw into the mix was that of the 12 economies that the Commonwealth Fund looked at, we also spent the least amount of money. That's not entirely true. New Zealand spent just a little bit less than us, but I think they came 7th or 8th in this international comparison. So we see this kind of increasing demand right across health and social care. We see the historical context of the NHS being absolutely outstanding and belonging to the people, of course, as the first line of the NHS Constitution says. But we all know that we face a very challenging future, the challenge in the context of austerity. And despite what any of the political parties say, of course, the 5-year forward view made very clear that the recurrent challenge to the NHS by 2020 is £30 billion a year. So that magic figure that Simon Stevens came up with of an extra £8 billion for the NHS, which you might have seen some of the political parties talking about last week, is predicated on a £22 billion saving, and that's recurrent. Now, of course, that need for extra saving over the next few years comes into the context of about 800 or 900 million pounds alone being taken out of London local authority. Some of you will know that, and many years of a quick agenda affecting all major NHS providers. So again, that is another context in which we've got to find this extra money. So the point is this: how are we going to do it? I think appropriately there is silence in the truth, because the truth is no one knows. If someone says they have the answer, you know, like Donkey and Shrek, then I think they're sadly mistaken. No one does know the answer. The government and lots of kind of very clever people, cleverer than me, are saying, well, the answer is integration. Integration of statutory services people are normally talking about. Well, again, if you look at most of the surveys, the studies, it shows that integration improves the patient experience. I think it improves the provider's experience of care. But I'm afraid there is no evidence, no tangible evidence that I've seen that it saves money. So we face a real challenge, don't we? And I think part of being a member of a kind of statutory service, we tend to think along those lines. We tend to think about structures, and we tend to think about integration, and of course that can be about structures as well. And I think this is where the kind of genius of Healthy Villages comes along. I'm going to finish with a couple of patient stories, because certainly it's our governing body. We have been quite consumed with a couple of quality issues, and they're both broken. So if you look at the burden of increasing admissions in acute hospitals, one of the main sources of that has been increased admissions in COPD, smoking-related lung disease. And certainly in our quality work, we've been concerned about the level of pressure ulcers that our patients have been experiencing. So along comes Healthy Villages with its more, socialised preventative approach, and I think this is where we get to closer to where we need to be, I think, in terms of the kind of conundrums that we face. So Mrs. Smith, and she's a real patient, let's just call her that name, lives on her own and is subject to repeated COPD admissions. And you might know, or not, that the average non-elective admission costs £2,000. That's a lot of money by any judgment. So what do the doctors do? The doctors do what the doctors do. They increase her inhalers, they change the tablets, GP is scratching his or her head. No one can understand why this is happening. That's a district nurse, Heather, from BCHC with kind of extra navigator training, goes in and spends a little bit more time with Mrs. Smith, sits down with a cup of tea. Maybe that's kind of some of the space that we need to have this kind of conversation, and finds out the truth. And a lot of this is, what's really going on. And of course, what's really going on is that she's got a neighbour who lives across the main road, And the neighbour, for complex reasons, is getting into kind of crisis. She's calling up the friend's rushing across the road to sort her out, and then by the time she gets back, she's calling 999 because she's so short of breath. So Heather, sorry, she's in the room, goes across, knocks on the door, and I might be building a little bit here, forgive me if I don't sheer experience the story, knocks on the door and discovers a 97-year-old that her hearing aid batteries had run out, and I think she'd lost her glasses or trodden on them or something. So you had a 97-year-old vulnerable lady living on her own who could neither see nor hear. Not surprisingly, she was getting into trouble, falling over, whatever, and a friend would come and sort her out. So Heather went the second mile, rather than saying, that's not my problem, no one's referred it to me, sorted out hearing and visual problems, and the crises stopped happening. And funnily enough, Mrs. Smith's hospital admissions pulled up the pit. It just stopped happening. It's a very different way of approaching this kind of A&E attendance situation that we've got. There was a couple, similarly, it was a very tragic situation. The husband had a stroke. I think it was 18 months into his kind of care package. I think maximum care package, 4 visits a day. And again, sorry Heather, it was you, wasn't it? And I think Heather went round one day and the wife just burst into tears and said that she didn't want to live anymore. It's understandable that the partner had had a stroke, her quality of life had just disappeared completely. And again, with this kind of extra training Heather had, she sat down, and one of the questions is, you know, what would, when we were you're happiest, what would you like to do? Just trying to focus on life. Now, bearing in mind she was like 75, 76, 77 and racked full of arthritis, the reply was, again, it starts to show, I think, how ageist we can be. You know, we see an older person in front of us and not a human being. Because this older person said, I want to join a gym. I think it was not Heather with a feather at this point. Anyway, it's a long story. I think that there was a local company that had special equipment that older people could use. So I think it took a lot of effort in terms of transport and maybe getting her out of maybe the loss of confidence she'd suffered as a result of these experiences, but she got down to the gym. She had a lovely time. I hope I'm exercising when I'm 75. She met people. She socialised. People befriended her. They eventually persuaded her to come round to her home, and they started playing cards with the husband. He was the local prize gardener. He was very distressed that his garden was a mess, although he didn't seem a mess to anyone else. And they assisted, I think, in helping with the garden as well. I think that had a very positive impact on precious soil, and certainly had a very positive impact on their experience of health and well-being. So I think as we approach this kind of conundrum that I've described, and I'm not saying that I've got the answers, I just think that historically I and others have been guilty of a kind of one-dimensional view of the world. And that can be particularly true, I think, if you like, when you put doctors in charge of the health service, because obviously doctors do think very medically, do think in a very disease-orientated fashion. Of course, the majority of people don't have diseases. They might have symptoms, they certainly have a life or the context of their life. And I think only until we get into that agenda, as I think these two stories have demonstrated, will we really be able to grasp what is really going on in people's lives, not how we can help them, but how we can empower them to get to a better point than their active communities. There's many, many more things I could say, but I'm needed upstairs. But I hope you have a very good day. I hope that some of these opening remarks will maybe help you, maybe help me. You know, let's not think one-dimensionally. We need to, you know, to get into Einstein, we need to think a little bit more four-dimensionally and get into that space-time conundrum, because it's only when we do that, I think, that we'll be able to come up with those ideas that we need. And again, we do need a genius, and I don't think that's me. I don't think it's David Cameron, and I don't think it's Simon Stevens. I think it's much more likely to be you. But to be fair to Simon Stevens, I think he has given us a little bit of space in which we can maybe throw some ideas to go. So think the unthinkable, do some blue sky thinking. That's very much at the heart of what the village is. And I hope in that spirit we can achieve something much better than historically the occupation has done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Coward, and we thank you for taking the time to come down and speak with us. Some of you may be thinking, well, Healthy Villages, I still don't know what the concept is. Don't worry, it's coming soon. I'd like to move on and introduce our next speaker, Ashley Murtagh, who's our acting head of procurement at the Trust. Welcome, Ashley.
Do I have some slides?
Yeah, just if you just press to the right.
Okay. Morning all. Thank you for having me. I'm Ashley, as introduced. I feel like I've been here before, but I probably was a few minutes ago. So I've got 10 minutes, I guess, to tell you all what procurement is, why we do what we do, how you can become involved. And like anything that we're passionate talking about, 10 minutes is not enough time at all. So what I've done is I've put together some slides and they will guide me. So the first question is, what is procurement? These are different from my slides, so I'm going to take a stab at something here. If we're willing to, and if you're able to, and if it's safe to, would you mind standing up for me? Oh, the power. Power feels great. Okay. Take a seat if you know what if you don't know what procurement is. That's a good start. Take a seat if you have never been part of a procurement process. Even better. Take a seat if you do not feel you could define accurately what procurement is. Losing some now. Still a fair number of you. And last of all, stay standing if you would be willing to come up here and explain to the rest of us what procurement is. And if I could take your details, sir, I might be interested in a job offer for you in the near future. But yeah, thank you very much. So I guess what is it? So once upon a time, we got a procurement group of boffins in a room and we came up with a sentence that defines what procurement is. And I'll read it. It's the acquisition of goods, services or works through a compliant process in order to obtain best value by evidencing value for money to meet the needs of the trust in terms of product, quality, people, time, performance, location and price. It's a mouthful and it's full of capital letters and phrases. So we'll break it down somewhat. That should be around the word goods, but goods are things that we typically can touch. So furniture, desks, gloves, syringes, beds, everything that you can physically get your hands on is a good. Services, things you can't touch, healthcare, social care, the nurses we've got in the room, the caterers, the cleaners, everything that isn't physically tangible. And works. Work should be highlighted. I'm going to have a word with Hamid now. Works. So works is the physical development and building things, so roads, hospitals, infrastructure, rail, and they're separated from what we typically do. The next one that should be highlighted is compliance process. Why a compliant process? Well, we're a public sector organisation subject to public law. Best value should be evident. Best value should be highlighted. Best value is a combination of price and quality and the balance that's involved in getting it right. Evidencing, well, the processes and methods we use need to be robust, they need to be tested, and they need to be proven. Value for money. Value for money has been around for 2 decades, and it's the combination of the economic factors, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of the solutions we put in place. Meet the needs of the trust, separating what we want from what we actually need is a key factor of what procurement's about. And then the last few are... The last few is everything after the word of, so it's getting the right products to the right place at the right time, at the right quality, at the right location, from the right people, at the right price. So why all the red tape? And lots of it. Simply put, it's public money, so it's governed by public law. And there's a whole raft of it that we have to navigate our trust through. At the very roots, we've got the European Public Procurement Directives. They are then transcribed, and they have been in February this year, into UK public law. We've then got the Department of Health, what I quoted as regulations. They aren't necessarily regulations, but there's a whole host of mandated things that we must do. There's some aspirated things as well. Then we've got the Trust's equivalent regulations, our financial instructions, our processes and procedures. At the very tip of the tree, we've got the procurement strategy, which it does say on the agenda I'm going to talk about. So that's everything I have to navigate through on a day-to-day basis and make sure that the team we've got are compliant with. So what are the benefits of all of this? That's the big question. So the benefits are these 5, maybe 6 principles of procurement. The first one is transparency. It's to ensure that everything we do is transparent. The word that was used recently in a meeting was being exposed. And as an NHS organisation, we are more exposed than we ever have been. And it's rightly so. You should be able to see where your taxpayers' money is being spent and how. Proportionality. This is the old making sure we're not using a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. Making sure that the processes we put in place are proportionate to the value of the exercise and the risk of the exercise. Equality, making sure that we're fair. Simple as that. Non-discriminatory means when we write specifications, and if I go into my own language, please put your hand up and let me know. So when we specify, we're going to buy a keyboard, and I hope this doesn't impact on this. It needs to be a QWERTY keyboard, black, needs to be wireless, etc., etc. We need to make sure that however we specify that isn't discriminating any organisation that can offer that to the trust. And we must give mutual recognition. So if we start stating you have to have a particular qualification in your field, we typically say or equivalent. Or if we start stating you must be ISO 14,000 and whatever, we start asking for equivalence so that we aren't blocking off entries to working with the trust. And my strategy, as you would expect, is very linked to the national strategy, which is about improving the standards of procurement across the entire NHS. Now, there is a Department of Health document called the Standards of Procurement. It's about 45 pages long, and it lists all the things that every procurement body is required to do within the NHS. And there's a set of KPIs, key performance indicators, that are there to measure each trust to make sure that we can be benchmarked to our comparators. In the Standards of Procurement, there are 3 levels, and our ambition is to be level 1 within this current financial year. We're almost there. There are a few areas that we still need to improve upon. Level 2 within the next financial year, and level 3, which is the top of the Standards of Procurement. We may never actually get there, but we should be continually working towards. We are continually benchmarked against our neighbours. Now, as a community trust in Birmingham, we're benchmarked against some of the biggest trusts you can find. University Hospitals Birmingham, the Children's Hospital, Women's Hospital, and everything else. So we have quite some fierce opposition to make sure that we are performing against. So what is it that we've done that makes things easier for organisations, businesses to get involved? Well, we're simplifying the processes that we put in place as much as we possibly can, given everything that I've said so far. Where possible, we split tenders down into lots so that if we are spending £1 million on a service or a good, is it possible to break that down into bite-sized chunks so that we can increase the competition and we aren't ruling out the possibility of new entrants to the market? We're maximising our use of electronic procurement methods so that it's easier for suppliers to access opportunities, to bid and to see where they are in the process. And the last 3 are really interesting. We're building the ability to recognise innovation. It's something that makes me a little bit nervous, innovation, because I don't quite know how to quantify it. But we recognise that there are innovative ways of doing things, and the NHS needs to embrace these. So in our process of procuring now, we are looking at factoring in a way of allowing innovation to be scored and to be valued. That requires us to increase our appetite towards risk. Now, at everything we do, the patient is at the very heart, or if it's the patient or if it's the staff, they're at the very heart of all of our decision making. And in the healthcare, risk is, we're risk averse for right reasons, but we need to make sure that where we can, we take proactive risk, and we recognise the benefits of SMEs. So we aren't necessarily saying we're not going to work with some of the bigger organisations, but we do recognise the flexibility that smaller organisations can bring to the NHS, particularly with local knowledge and local expertise. Where should you be looking? So if your suppliers, the first place you need to be registered is the Supplying to NHS portal. I'm sure these slides will be coming around. That's where all of the opportunities that the Trust puts out to market are advertised. The government have put in place a website called Contracts Finder, which means anything of public spending in excess of £25,000 from 1st of April this year for an NHS body must be advertised on Contracts Finder. The third bullet point is the European Union. So anything above the EU threshold for our particular trust, that's £110,000. For local authorities, it's £173,000. And if it's works we're talking about, it's anything above £5 million. So anytime we exceed those particular thresholds, you will find an advertisement on TED.Europa. The last one is the government's initiatives to have a single supplier database, so that rather than you have to register at 3 different places, you register on what will be SID4Gov. It's still in its infancy. And then all NHS bodies and public sector bodies are able to access your information and not ask you to submit 3 years' worth of accounts, your name, your address, your bank details, over and over again. Other places that we typically use are the national procurement hubs. So there's ESPO, Eastern Shires Procurement Organisation, NEPO, WIPO, the London Procurement Partnership, and then people such as Health Trust Europe, who occasionally do big framework exercises where you can be a part of, that allows NHS and public sector members to access. I had my cue to leave the stage, so thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any. Then I'll make my way out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. I can promise you, when you sent your slides yesterday, they were perfectly formatted. I don't know what happened today with those circles. That's true, isn't it? So thank you very much. I'd like to move on. We're just looking around to make sure that all the appropriate people are in the room. Now we've come on to the stage where we will focus more on the concept of healthy villages. And I'd like to invite to come forward Sam German, who... Let me just move on to the right slide. He's the Director of Healthy Villages. Welcome, Sam.
Morning, everyone, and thank you, Christine. This for the next half an hour, having set some hopefully some useful context with the earlier messages that you heard, we just thought we'd spend some time getting into a bit more detail on what the actual concept is, and hopefully move to the tangible opportunities that we hope will be inviting you to sort of collaborate around. I am currently missing one leg of this in terms of Councillor Kennedy, who's been caught up in some business, but he's on his way, so hopefully he'll be able to sort of join in the conversation as soon as he arrives. What we wanted to do really was to really give you an idea in a bit more detail as to the journey so far, where we've gotten to, and use that as a kind of a platform to say, okay, what might be next then? Where might we go next? And as you heard, and I'm glad Peter Axon said it, and pretty much Dr. Coward repeated the same message, that question can't be answered by a single party or a single voice. It just begs collaboration, doesn't it? And also I'd say as well, one of the things that we've probably learned quite clearly through the process that we've gone through so far, the last couple of years, is that some of the answers, or part of the answers, or components of the answers, necessarily, we believe, will already be there. Will be in the local health economy, will be in your heads, will be in your catalogues and portfolios, and what we hope to do is to sort of have those emerge, have those offered forward as part of a collaborative process, and let's see what we can build together, right? So that's the kind of the offer that's emerging. So for the story so far, now it was interesting hearing Andrew speak earlier and hearing him relay some of the things that we've uncovered with our data analysis over the last sort of six months or so. In December, we did what we were calling an interim evaluation. Probably too strong a term. We'd at that point been running for only 6 months in terms of signing up real people onto service. But what was emerging almost immediately from the start was this sense of interesting stories about the people that we were working to. And I mean, Heather, just put your hand up, will you? So Heather O'Sullivan, that's the Heather that Dr. Carroll was referring to, so she's in the room. And there are others as well. I know some of the organisations, the community groups that have been at the centre of this. Birmingham Settlement are in the room, for example, for Chardin. So there are people here who are part of the stories that we're alluding to, right? So as part of the conversational process of exploring possibilities, just discover who's here and ask them. There are plenty of people who are involved that can give you some real life insight into some of the stuff we're going to be talking about now. So where are we now? Well, as of today, we currently have about 650 real people in real places. That's a kind of a phrase that I'll use from time to time, registered on something called Complete Care. Complete Care was the first, if you like, collaboration, service offer, future model of care that the Healthy Villages Partnership worked on and has worked up. And really that's the example we're going to give you today as to, what's possible. Okay, those 650 individuals reside in Borsall Heath, Shard End and Castle Vale right now. Potentially, we're currently looking at other areas of Birmingham that have cohorts that we believe could benefit from a further deployment of the model. In order to do that, we think we'd need to sort of look at making the model more robust. And more robust means digitalisation largely. But it also means figuring out how we do this at scale and how we start to leverage some of the, let's just say, the assets and skills and commodities that might already be in and around the Birmingham health economy. That's the offer that's on the table. So if I just scan down, is this going to all come up in one go? Yeah. Okay. So this, look, I'm going to do this very quickly because it's largely it's gone back. Okay. Thank you. It's largely it's a picture, and some of you may have seen this already. It's a picture that this describes, if you like, the system challenge that we tried to take on. Now, 2 years ago, when individuals were getting round tables and having conversations and saying, what is it we need to address as a system challenge, it became apparent from the start that it was a big old challenge, if I could put it that way. And this was one of the graphs that we landed on after several months of head-scratching, conversation, debate, and exploration, which kind of started to give us a steady view of the system that we thought we wanted to the system challenge we wanted to address. And if I could just take it from the sort of top left, what's been mentioned already is something. Can you hear me okay? Is it okay? From the top left, what we realised that there was a big issue around lifestyles and well-being, and I think that's been well spoken to already by Andrew Coward in his earlier segment. But our ambition there was to really understand. It was about data capture. For those of you who were party to a workshop in January last year, Karen Creevin, head of Wellbeing Services in Birmingham, I think articulated this really well. What she was saying is that we have no real robust way of measuring all the activity that's out there in terms of what people are doing when they go for a run in the local park or walk their dogs or are out there doing locally good stuff, living their day-to-day lives, having a sense of an ability to capture some of that data in addition to the stuff that we do capture. I.e., if you attend a local authority-sponsored, well-being facility, you may well swipe a card there or register and give us some data. That's all well and good, but that's a mere fraction of the data that we think ought to be available to us if we're thinking of the wider well-being provision around Birmingham. And Birmingham City Council have done some great work and have some wonderful ambition, I think, to provision world-class well-being and activity facilities for its residents. But the data would be helpful in terms of deciding how we do this on a much more effective and targeted basis. So that's what the top right bit was about. If I go bottom right for a second, I'm deliberately doing this in a particular order to hopefully get us to a particular place. The bottom right, we refer to as ambient intelligence, and I have to say that always raises a question. So anyone who's got a better way of describing what we think we want to do there, let us know today, and we'll happily update this slide. But really what this is this is our opportunity to bring in so research and development, ambition, resources, appetite from academia, from startups, and even from some of the larger tech firms that might have a contribution to make here. We wanted to create a space which says, how do we get all that sort of resource into one conversation so that we see two things happening primarily. One is the village becomes the place to learn. And that's what today's about. So the 16 or so challenges that we're going to put to you through this event today are the lived experience of trying to do this in real places. That's what's come from Shardend, Bolsleith, and Castlevale, right? We haven't sat in the room like this one and made up these challenges. They've come from Heather and the other navigators and the other community groups, sort of saying, yeah, this is our lived experience of trying to do this for your patients, for your service users. So that's what we're offering to you today. The other thing it allows us to do is to make sure that the conversations we're having in those localities are what we call improvement conversations. So we can come back iteratively and say, okay, let's give this a go then. We've got an idea of some things that might work locally. Let's give them a try. Let's measure them. Let's see if they work. And that way we're engaging with what we're calling an improvement conversation. It's a bit jargony, but I'm afraid that's where we've gotten to so far. The top right is an interesting one. When Peter Axon was given, it's a horror story of a statistic that Peter mentions, and it comes up from time to time, and we often discuss this now, and people talk about it as if it's £8 billion extra for the NHS. That should be all right. By 2020, if we can get ourselves up to about 30 billion with a couple of efficiencies, that'd be all right as well. That's actually quite it's an enormous financial challenge, not just for health, but for all public provision in the UK. And it's not just the UK. That's the other thing to sort of note about that. This is a problem which a lot of Western economies in particular are facing and have been facing for some time. What I want to say about the Village Pound piece of work is, it has a lot to do with economics. It has a lot to do with drawing in social responsibility funding and connecting with CSR agendas of organisations. And there are many in Birmingham who are involved with us in working through this question simply because they employ a lot of people here, or they have a lot of local interest in getting it right for Birmingham, and they're poised to be part of this conversation when it comes to how do we address that wider fundamental socioeconomic challenges which is underneath what we're trying to do here. What we want to do with the Village Pound part of the system is ask ourselves this question. The issues that are driving that problem, the £30 billion deficit, right, largely from a health perspective, comes down to people saying, well, you know what, people are living longer, and as a result of that, they're getting ill and they're going to hospital. Well, I say, why is longer a problematic thing for us to think about? So there's an invitation to see if we can reframe that question. My mother's 85, right, and as she lived long enough, hopefully she'll have a few more good years in her. And be able to enjoy it, right? So there's something about how we frame these challenges and reframe some of the challenges, if you like, to make them a little bit more doable, a little bit more food for thought, and a little bit more something that drives this collaborative process that we're hoping we can get into. The final part of this system model that we came up with is really the thing that we've gone into a bit more depth on, and we refer to it, technically speaking, as something called a latent confidence network. That's our jargon. If marketing label for it is Complete Care, that's the service that we're referring to when we say we've trialled this 650 people who are now benefiting from Complete Care as a provision. We're looking at their lives in a very specific way, and that's the thing I really want to introduce to you now as the offer around the model. I'm going to jump that slide because it didn't look the way I expected it to. And this one slightly looks a bit more like it. Okay, so if you could imagine the blue nodes on here, and this is the complete care model for you. Okay, quick in a quick 2-minute summary. The blue nodes are referring to statutory provision. You can see around Mary a navigator. Around Mary and a navigator, so our Heathers, and there are a few of our district nurses and community groups like Birmingham Settlement, Borseley Forum in the example that Councillor Kennedy can go into a bit more detail on for us, and many others, I could quote many others, are acting as navigators in conjunction with Mary's wider well-being in relation to her, her lived experience. And what we're trying to do is to shift the balance, if you like, of interactions and dependency, shift from the blue nodes to the green nodes. And there's a very good reason we want to do that. Not because we're trying to, not have Mary go and see a GP. We actually want Mary to go and see a GP for the right reasons. 40% of GP appointments in Borseley are to do with non-medical issues, anxiety, debt stress, worried well, if you like, housing issues, immigration issues and all that sort of stuff, 40%. Right? I mean, we were really struck when that particular metric emerged. We don't think that that's a good use of a GP's time necessarily. So what we're wanting to do is, as Dr. Coward explains, is to look a bit more widely around Mary's lived experience, a wider life, and say, are there other things in and around and near to where Mary is, which we could connect her to, better serve that purpose of dealing with, the underlying issues that she's experiencing, be it debt, be it isolation, be it low opportunity to get out about. Right, that's the way I would frame that challenge. So the sort of things that we've been doing through this pilot is having, as was the example that was given earlier. Mary wanted to do some exercise, a 70-odd-year-old individual who's asked the question, if we could wave a magic wand for you and have you do anything at all. In fact, when were you most happy? What were you doing then? And she thought it through and came up with the idea, I'd love to be part of a gym. We don't necessarily expect that to have been the response. But actually, the physical, the opportunity to get out and be active and socialise that then came from that, as we've assessed as given massive benefits for not just the individual concerned, but a whole range of people in and around her life. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at some of the Experian analysis that we did on the socio-economic implications of how this model might be working. The other thing I'd say about this model very quickly, and I've been joined by Councillor Kennedy, so in a second or two we can go into some of the, what happened in Borseley question more specifically. But the other thing I'd like to say about the green nodes on this map is they are the majority of what is available for a person, whatever their condition is. In other words, if you think about how much time on the face of a clock an unwell person, as we might see them, spends in front of a clinician at a hospital appointment, or being visited by a community care clinician, no matter how the extent of the package, that will always be a very small percentage of the time in that person's life that they spend doing the other things that we might be able to facilitate further interaction over. Right, so and in some cases in particular, some of the nodes on there have turned out to be, from the evidence that we've seen for the pilot users, to be extremely powerful provision and powerful influences for that person's long-term well-being and happiness. So we talk about neighbourly neighbours in Borseley. The example that Andrew Coward gave earlier is exactly that. The person on Heather's caseload was a neighbourly neighbour herself. She was looking after a more older, more infirmed friend of hers, just purely out of that's just simply what she did. So that being a model at this stage, I'm looking at the time. I'm going to ask Councillor Kennedy to mention a few things about the Borseley experience, and then we'll look at the data from Emma.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm delayed. it's not necessarily just the Balsall Heath experience. I came into this being mandated to lead for the City Council on a thing called neighbourhood community budgeting. The current government now calls it Our Place, which is about doing stuff in neighbourhoods and using resources smarter to do stuff better. It's had various iterations, and whatever government appears in a few weeks' time, I'm sure it will continue to have that kind of neighbourhood level of integration being the absolute focus for us. But on March 2 years ago, the then head of procurement for the trust came to see me to say, can health integrate with us on neighbourhoods? And you know how we'd previously engaged with health was a mystery. What is health? What is a health system in a neighbourhood? How do you find? Is it or whatever? You know, the district nurses sort of wafted magic with the stuff. So we hadn't been able to kind of embrace doing stuff on a neighbourhood level before, but we've certainly done that now. And over the 2 years that we've been going. I'm always chiding Sam. I think you know I would have taken this 2 years ago, but hard down on the pedal to really these new models of care and of data. I go around the country talking about this integration stuff, and there are two things I say to elected members wherever they are, is that whatever your council's data is, it is unfit to do stuff on an integrated way in a local neighbourhood. And whatever your financial systems are, they too are unfit to do stuff on a neighbourhood basis. And what we have to do is disaggregate all of the data and parse it right down to the individuals, that real individuals, their lived experience in the neighbourhood. So where we've got to, you say Balsall Heath, of fantastic social stuff, what I call above the line stuff that goes on in Balsall Heath and in the other neighbourhoods, and there's some deficit stuff that's kind of below the line that's challenging and so on. So there's a density of issues that face some individuals, their families and streets that is simply overwhelming for them in some cases, and that's most obvious right outside the front door where there's vast accumulations of litter, fly tipping, graffiti and so on, because people have kind of given up. But there is such a rich resource within the neighbourhood, informal organisations and informal, and what we've been revealing with a lot of these actual real people in real neighbourhoods is informal networks, kind of serendipities that go on. And if you kind of conceive, we've been looking at over 65s in the first cohort with complex health needs. So these are people who are, you know, their system, they are ill people in general terms, and yet we found that half of them want to volunteer to do stuff. And if you look at tracking people's lives through, as you know, the first or middle periods of life, you're growing, you're developing, you're getting educated, you're doing work if you're fortunate, and you're developing social networks, families, and so on. And then as you move towards the later period of your life, you're losing these social networks, you're losing acquaintances, you're losing the workplace, and so on. So your world is shrinking. And what we've is that the people's lives have kind of reopened up. They've bloomed. We've got 650 elders with complex needs on the programme at the moment. And quite frankly, many of their lives have been transformed through these simple kind of social interactions integrated with health stuff. So where we're going, this isn't the end of where we're going. We're evolving very rapidly to a point where I hope that in the next 12 months, we're going to be able to press a button and get the actual ecology of Mary's life, whether it's Castle Vale, Shard End, Balsall Heath, Small Heath, or wherever, or the actual ecology of Hamid's life and what school, street, and so on. And we want to layer up the existing neighbourliness with new stuff that's going on. And a lot of that is down to data. It's down to repackaging stuff with real people in their lived experience and the ecology of their life. So I'm really excited about where we've got to, and I'm a bit more excited about where we're going to. And Emma will show you some of the very clever stuff under the bonnet here. Experian, I've got 850,000 data sets linked to every postcode in the UK. So don't be too frightened about what we've got. It is all going through the appropriate information governances and so on, but the capabilities you're about to see may surprise some.
Thanks, Tony. So, as has been mentioned today, this is the ring of confidence alongside here with the green and blue nodes. And what we've done is some analysis to look at what the wider socioeconomic impacts of complete care are. So we've taken 4 themes as a starting point. So looking at crime, health and wellbeing, education, and the local pound. And we've used some of our data to look at, for every Mary on the pilot or living within Birmingham, actually what is the interaction between each of those nodes, and what are the kind of nodes which have a higher pull to each individual. So noting that even though the pilot programme is for over 65s, actually one size doesn't fit all for even that cohort of people. And the data that we hold as Experian can help us segment that population further to understand the needs, the behaviours, the lifestyles, the characteristics of those individual people in order to create a personalised service that meets the needs of those people. So this is just one example. Take one of the segments that we've created. So here we've got a kind of a picture of a Mary. And this group here represents about 30% of people on the current pilot. So from looking at segmenting those people, and we can then build up a picture of their kind of everyday life and the assets that they're likely to interact with. Example, this group here has low levels of further education, low levels of physical activity. They are likely to live alone, probably very isolated individuals, worried about being a victim of crime, are likely to be feel faith is important. So do they go to their local church or a religious organisation? So what are they already involved in? But also recognising some of the new things that they might want to be involved in. So actually, what is the overall uptake of technology within these groups of people so far? Maybe for this group, it will be lower than a different over 65 group. For example, my parents, who they've got a smartphone now, they're already using technology. So those over 65s will be very different to the experience of this group here. So we've extended that further by looking at some behavioural correlations. So this example here, this graph, just shows some of the groups that we have in terms of our segmentation, but also looks at the correlations between some of the things that have been mentioned today. So Andrew mentioned CPD is a big issue in terms of cost. And when we correlate that with the levels of financial stress that those groups also have, it's a sort of near perfect correlation. So it kind of points to what Sam was saying around new models of delivering things. So actually, if these people are likely to have COPD, but also have a lot of worries around stress, is that exacerbating their condition? Can you link up services around debt advice with those services around COPD in order to improve the patient experience but reduce COPD admissions? So a good example of this is, for example, the British Lung Foundation have moved their testing services, their community testing services, to bingo halls because they recognise that those groups in the top right-hand corner enjoy going to bingo. So they've increased the amount of people from the target groups that they now test for COPD by going to the community assets they're likely to reside in and use in their day-to-day life. So this is just another example of the same thing really, but just geographically. So in Shard End, you can see here that it's the same high risk areas that are likely to smoke, likely to have financial difficulty and likely to prefer bingo. So just highlighting some of those correlations in order to think about new models of delivery. So another example that I just wanted to share today was some of the proximity analysis that we've done. So this is looking at the pilot postcodes mapped across Birmingham. So you can see here that there's correlations in Balsall Heath, Shard End and Castle Vale has already been mentioned. But when you look at, as Tony said earlier, around, lots of people actually want to volunteer that are on the pilot. So how do you enable that and how sustainable is that? So we did some analysis to look at how close, if you're a patient on complete care, how close is your nearest other patient on complete care? And actually it's a two-minute walk away. So that's quite a sustainable way of actually enabling that volunteering that people want to do. And the other one is around accessibility to green space. So actually, we looked at the pipeline twice as far away from green spaces than an average Birmingham resident. So that kind of poses a question to potentially the navigators and other befriending services and other nodes on the complete care. How do you enable people to get to spaces and use those most effectively in order to improve their well-being? So that's just a quick snapshot of some of the work that we've done. And I'll hand back over to Clive.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, those three good people. We're 4 minutes coffee, you'll be pleased to know. And what I want to do to introduce now into coffee is to say, so what's the digitalisation all about? And now we're starting to move from the conceptual frameworks and the frameworks of procurement and finance into this. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can just run it and then we can see and maximise it. That's it. So this will hopefully give you an idea now as to how we are beginning to think about how digitalisation is fitting into this. Hamid.
Before you start this, can I just ask everyone to look at this video? This is obviously a result of a lot of the stakeholders brainstorming together with this one scenario. We are in no way saying this is definitive. So what we're expecting you to do after the prep is basically sit around the tables and have a think about what you think is missing from that scenario and what's possible, what's not possible. So just watch that and then grab the coffee and come back to the video. All right, thank you.
PM to 7 AM. Mary is in bed and she is being monitored for quality of sleep and vital signs. If she wakes, the room lighting will come on, and if she does not return to bed within 10 minutes, a message will be spoken wherever she is, asking her if she's all right. Her digital assistant will then decide what type of help she may need. It's 7 AM. Mary rises and goes to the kitchen. The kitchen already knows how Mary uses the equipment and readies itself to keep her safe. Now it's time for her to get dressed, and she wears clothing which will monitor her health and patterns of. It's 7:15 and Mary is taking antibiotics. On her way from the kitchen, she feels a little dizzy. This is detected, and again she is asked if she is okay. It's 7:30 AM and Mary visits the bathroom. She takes an automatic shower and her weight is monitored, and if necessary, dietary suggestions are made. It's 8 AM, and depending what's in the fridge, Mary will be advised what food she needs to get. It's 9 AM and Mary is prompted to take her medicines, which are automatically dispensed. She is also reminded of her day's appointments. The system keeps track of her medicines and automatically generates requests for replacement. It's 9:30 AM and Mary usually goes on the bus, but today she's not sure, so her digital assistant, using a personalised interface, will help her make choices from a range of options that are available to her today. It will then help her with her wardrobe choices and arrange transport for her. It's 9:45 and Mary sometimes goes to the supermarket on the bus. She sits next to Janet and their smart devices detect their and the length of time. The GPS system helps Mary to get off at the right stop, and the supermarket will register her presence. It's 12 noon and Mary normally visits the butcher before midday, but his smart system has not registered her today, so it automatically asks for information. All seems to be well as she's been doing other things, and so the butcher's smart system updates Mary's profile with the variants. It's 12:15 and Mary's digital assistant tells her that it's her nephew's birthday. By touching his picture, she is connected immediately. It's 5 o'clock and the temperature in Mary's house is dropping. The fire is switched on automatically. But Mary does not want this because of the cost, and so she switches it off. The system continues to monitor and asks Mary if she's sure and may need to decide what type of help to summon. It's 8 p.m. and Mary decides to cook something. Her digital assistant, with knowledge of what food is available, Mary's skills in the kitchen, her dietary requirements, and her metabolism suggests a suitable recipe. It's 10 p.m. and Mary retires to bed. The light goes off automatically and monitoring begins.
So I'm quite sure that as you're watching that, you'll be thinking, oh, what about, and that's daft, that's not going to work. Exactly what we want you to think, so please get some coffee and have some chat.
Can we ask that when you've got your coffee, if you get a chance, could you come back as soon as possible, please? Because in the coffee break, we want you to be discussing. Thank you.
They're in this. Oh, I think it's over here.
No. Well, 10 minutes. We'll bring some people are talking together. Then in the next 10 minutes, we're just collecting the. Straight after this.
On the mic? Yeah. It was only
You use it, doesn't it?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay.
Sharing ideas takes 2 weeks. And the actual ideas, I'll go through them. Hello.
Can I have your attention, please? In the interest of time, some people are still waiting for more coffee. So what we're suggesting is, so that we can actually not be delayed with the brainstorming, if you could all make sure you've got a cup, help yourself to biscuits, bring your coffee cups in, and we will come round and serve you the coffee, so that we don't delay while you're waiting. So in the meantime, I would like to. Can I have your attention, please? It's like school, isn't it? Your attention. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do is introduce Hamid. Where is Hamid? Hamid Zolfa Garinia. And what he'd like to do now is, just from the video you've seen, we'd like you to discuss around your tables what digital enablements you think there should be within Mary's life. And we're not going to give you very long to do that. So I'm going to hand over to Hamid, and I'll give you a few minutes. Do you want to introduce anything before they get started?
Is this for the brainstorm?
Yes.
At this stage, what we really want is basically for you to tell us one or two ideas per table. Write down as many as you want and put the name of the person who comes up with the idea next to it, so that we can chase them up if we want to. But in the interest of time, we may just have to collect one or two ideas from each table about what you think was missing, or any ideas that you want to add to what we think the future of Mary's life should look like. And if you could do that in the next 5 minutes, then we'll do a quick round and then collect those ideas. Is that all right? Thank you.
Technology is isolated rather than enabling. I think that's a very good point. It actually is all about Enable interaction, yes. Enable interaction. That's a good point.
Because it's just too late, so we'll have to go around the tables and offer just take it.
Oh, I need tea bags. I'd rather have a tea bag. This is just a way of building it up to make it really better.
Can I call you back to attention, please?
To do that a few times.
Can I call you back to attention, please? Now, it's one of these microphones.
Yeah, this one over here, that one is, yeah.
Can you? Yes. Are you going to facilitate?
Shall I facilitate and you take the microphone or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right. I'm sorry about the slight hiatus with the coffee, but hopefully you've got something and a biscuit. So what we'd like to do now is very rapidly go around each table and just ask you for one of your thoughts and ideas, so we can begin to share what the collective mind is saying. Randomly picking the table over here at the back, are you able to just give us one of your ideas, please? Oh, well, you need this. You need this. Who's going to speak?
I think generally on this table we felt like it wasn't actually tactile enough. It was all devices doing stuff for people and not enough interaction with humans.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll rotate around this way. May I give that to you?
Hello everyone. Yes, in this table we think about different things that are missing. The first one is that it seems that Mary is alone, so it's like missing the interaction with different people, and we call it people and social interaction. Also the issue of consultation, who's going to have the permission to access the information, Mary's information, when she's going to be able to consent about that. There is something about the freedom of choice. Maybe she's going to feel invigilated all the time.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on.
Technical support.
Yeah, we will get back to you. Who would like to speak on this table?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's most of the options gone. The
you didn't mention, was we talked about the different stages of control. So what stage of Mary's journey was this at? Was there a sense that this was something that could happen partly, fully, she could choose at what level she's interacting with it, rather than it being total control or not?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there. We were discussing quite a lot the cost around this total kind of integrated world of Mary, both from kind of a software and a hardware point of view, and also going back to the property she's actually in and connectivity around her in terms of 4G, Wi-Fi, and just everything around her. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Excellent. Who's going to speak to us on this table? Thank you.
I think it's going back to what we originally said about what Mary wanted, originally putting that aside because that's a bit too technical, and recording that and giving her the independence that she needs. Under the theme, I did it my way, and recording that and making sure that whatever they want, do we actually have that system in place or those interventions in place? And maybe that's probably, by recording that data, we might see a pattern that it might be something that others want to.
Excellent. Thank you. So that's action research, learning by doing. Who's on? Thank you.
So we've had some similar points to the other tables, but I think our key thing here was that the technology, whilst it helped her, was very disempowering. She had very little choice. She could express no preferences, and actually the technology was isolating and preventing social interaction and also, any physiological interaction that she might have with other people. So we think that's really important.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A couple of quick ones. The first one struck us the interface there was very disembodied, and being chased around the house by a voice is like to send her mad rather than get her healthier. The second one was the point made up earlier about it's about isolation and talking to people, and thinking about virtual communities, but particularly think about how the generation that's being raised on Minecraft and massively multiple games, how they will have a different sense of the use of technology to defeat the isolation problem.
Excellent, thank you. Who is your spokesperson, please? Would you mind?
Yeah. We had a couple of ideas, one of which was, a kind of procured list of activities that people could attend to, but with the premise that actually the person running those activities for any non-attenders would record why there was a non-attender. So actually the onus is on these community activities, the leaders of those, giving reasons and justification to kind of build the data set to then further inform things in future.
Brilliant. Enriching the data, yeah? Give that to you.
I think we're similar to everyone that one of the big things that was missing was a human intervention, and what if the technology fails? But there were so many gadgets in the house. We thought maybe if there was just one thing she wore all the time and that had some human interaction, that might sort of solve a lot of problems.
Thank you very much. I started with you, didn't I? Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much indeed. One thing that I didn't say earlier, and Heather's been referred to a number of times, and she is one of our human navigators. And one of the questions we've been asking ourselves, and Heather and I have talked about this, so she knows what I'm going to say, is it feasible for us not to have a human navigator? Is it feasible for us to have an ambiently intelligent system that actually does all the things that Heather does at the moment, or at least releases Heather to do the things which she's qualified to do? So it's not getting rid of Heather, it's making sure Heather is doing the things that she's qualified to do, and the other things are being done differently. So thank you very much for your feedback. We're going to move on with the programme. Hamid, is it you now? Thank you. There'll be more opportunities for feedback later.
So we've done that already. So I just want to quickly tell you how you can submit your ideas after this event around any of the challenges that I'll be presenting to you in a minute. So what we've done is I'll be sending a link to all the attendees. There is a page on the Birmingham Community website where you can basically submit any ideas that you might have around those challenges. The reason we've gone about doing it this way is that we want to keep it tidy and keep it to a certain template, and there's word limits on the definition of the idea, and once you basically put in your details and select the relevant challenge from a list of 16, then you can tell us what the title of your idea is and what it actually is, and then you can attach some documents to support your idea and then submit it, and I'll be receiving that in a certain format, and then we will have sessions amongst us where we will review all the ideas that are submitted to us. So telling you about all the challenges that we've identified. It was really good to hear the feedback from around the tables about these challenges that I'm going to present to you. These challenges, we've extracted them from that particular scenario that you. But then again, I'd like to re-emphasize that we're in no way saying this is definitive, and I'm very certain that this list of challenges will be basically restructured and reframed as we start our collaborations with you. So, yes, Christian and Clive are going to quickly distribute these list of challenges to you. The reason I didn't give them to you earlier is that I didn't want to distract you. I wanted you to be able to listen to what the other speakers had to say. So this is the actual list of 16 challenges with some explanation as to what we mean by them. Once you've all got a copy, I'm going to start going through them on the screen here and tell you what they actually are. And in your delegate packs, there's also a document called the mobile apps. So what you see on the walls here is the background research that we've done around these challenges, and some of them were presented as posters on the walls. Some of them, which are the mobile apps, we printed them and put them in your delegate packs. So we just wanted to show you that we've done our homework. We have a rough idea as to what's already out there, what solutions are available, and now we want to start working with you to develop the tools and solutions that are more tailored to the specific needs that we are going to present to you here. So the first challenge is an e-community. So the idea of an e-community is something like a Facebook. But it's for the elderly. It's something that they can use and they will use. And this is a big challenge because we want them to be encouraged to use it on a regular basis, and we wanted to increase Mary's interactions with like-minded people. There is a neighbor infrastructure. So the idea of neighborly neighbor is to encourage all the people who live near Mary to get involved in her well-being, and so we want them to voluntarily sign up to Mary's care and well-being, and in cases where there is a minor alarm event triggered against Mary because she's in distress, we want the neighborly neighbor to be the first person to respond to that. And how is it digital? Digital enablement is part of the neighborly neighbor infrastructure because we want to use digital technology to basically find out about the neighborly neighbor's interest in Mary's well-being and then sign them up, and also be able to inform them when Mary does need their care and attention. Psychosocial, cultural and behavior change. This one, we're completely relying on you because a lot of you have the expertise to tell us what sort of digital tools might be available to enable behavior change. There's lots of factors that will the dynamics of culture and behavior in various geolocations. There is ethnicity, age groups, the local economy. All these things will determine a variation in the type of basically culture and behavior you see in various locations. So you tell us, we want you to tell us what you're aware of that can help us achieve that. SSCP, that's the name we've given it. This is a platform that all the nodes on the Ring of Confidence, the Ring of Confidence that Sam German referred to, all those entities can communicate safely with each other regarding Mary. So, as an example, when the butcher does not see Mary on a Tuesday morning, then he's going to be using SSCP to parse Mary's visibility from the other nodes on the ring of confidence. And if Mary has been seen by the bus beacon, by the supermarket beacon, or by the GP, he'll get a response, yes, Mary's been visible, and don't worry about her. Point solutions. So the point solutions are particular solutions that may not necessarily fall directly under the remit of what we're trying to do here, but they're solutions that can basically resolve certain problems, very specific problems. I'll give you an example to clarify myself. If you know the district nurses who go around the community and visit Mary and Mary's peers, at the moment the way that they have to record their mileage is very cumbersome, and they spend a lot of time filling out travel expense forms. If there was an app that could record all of the district nurses traveling to various locations, and that could automatically update the data to the traveling expense system, then a lot of district nurses' time would be to be spent where it's most needed for Mary's care. So that's just an example. So we've left this particular one quite open because it could be any particular solution, specific solution for a particular problem that will ultimately contribute to improving of Mary's well-being. The Flexible Workforce Platform, it's a smart platform to manage the workload of all the people who are involved in Mary's well-being. There are examples of this out there. You would see some of the examples on the posters, smart workforce management tools that are already out there. But none of those do exactly what we want them to do. So I'll give you another example. When Mary, in the scenario you watch, when Mary is in distress in the afternoon and she's got high temperature because she's taking antibiotics, if the neighborly neighbor or none of the other people who received the alarm event respond to it, then we want the alarm event to be relayed to the district nurse who's closest to Mary. So the closest one in Mary's vicinity will receive a prompt on their digital device saying that Mary needs to be seen. And you get an idea of what I mean by smart workforce management. The digital care assistant is a tool that's going to have a lot of applications. It's going to be used to collect information from Mary. So we're thinking of utilizing that in various ways to collect information around Mary. We want to use cognitive games on this digital care assistant to get an idea of Mary's state of mind. We want to be able to present data to Mary. The example you saw about Mary's nephew's birthday, or basically any GP appointments that she might have, all of that will take place through the digital care assistant. This is the brain of the whole operation. We call it Knowledge Management and Early Warning System, CAMUS. This system, it's I'll just read it out from the slide. It's a multi-layered system to monitor the parameters associated with Mary's well-being and use intelligently with the smart platform DCA or other aspects of the urgent response. So this will bring in all the various bits of information from all the sensors in the smart home that Mary is living in, from the smart fabric that she's wearing, from her interactions using the digital care assistant, all the data that comes from district nurse or the supermarket or the butcher. It will pull all that data together, and it will have an artificial intelligence engine that will learn in the course of a few months about Mary's habits, and it has the capability to adapt itself to new habits that Mary picks up. We want you to tell us how we can engage Mary in the use of the DCA. We all know that it's not easy to get 85-year-old to use an iPad. So we want you to tell us what mechanisms are in place to make that a reality. Are there any reward mechanisms that we can utilize? How can we incentivize Mary to use this?
Are there any novel learning environments or learning solutions that could be utilized in encouraging Mary to use digital technology? It's interesting because this, I think something similar to this came up from the feedback. So this is an inventory of the community assets. Now, we've had talks with Birmingham Settlement Services, and in the past there has been attempts at doing this, basically enlisting all the services that are available to Mary in the community. There are a few challenges with that. The main challenge is, how do you keep that up to date? A lot of voluntary services are provided by people, 1 or 2 volunteers, who may stop doing that tomorrow. And if so, who is going to take that off of the inventory? How do you make sure the services on the inventory are actually up to date and they're not redundant? And the other challenge with this ICA is that we don't just want a list of hundreds, if not thousands, of community assets, including not only the voluntary services, but also Mary's hairdresser, Mary's butcher. But we also want to be able to smartly navigate through this. There's no point sending the district nurse or the navigator to visit Mary with a list of assets and then to start going through the list to find the appropriate asset for Mary based on her conditions. We want that to be smart. So that navigation needs to be based on Mary's needs. It needs to be designed somehow to take that into account. The GP dashboard is basically a display dashboard that collects information from all the other systems that I mentioned previously and displays them to the GP. So the GP is a person in charge of the whole operation. He or she can see what's going on around Mary's life, any new interventions that have been basically utilized around Mary, and even introduce new interventions through the system. We want to be able to measure Mary's interactions. When we had our brainstorming sessions, we came up with a concept of Mary's different villages. So we know that Mary has a geographical village, so Mary might be living in Chardin, but then there is a personal village that might be larger or smaller than this geographical village. What does the proportion of the 2 villages tell you about Mary's state of mind and her well-being? And then there is larger village. We call it the extended village. It's nodes that Mary doesn't access regularly, but she might have to visit them once in her lifetime. It might be a specialist hospital in London that Mary needs to visit at some point, and that brings that hospital into Mary's extended village. And then there is virtual village. There is other services that are perhaps the telecare services that Mary doesn't care whether they're provided from UK or from Australia, as long as they're provided to her. So it's on a different dimension. But all of these interactions, as well as the interactions that Mary has with her peers, with her relatives, family, and all the other care providers, we want to be able to measure them. And by measuring, we're referring to the number of contacts she has, the diversity of these contacts, and the contents of them. In the scenario that you watched, you saw Mary getting on the bus and seeing John on the bus, and the 2 smart devices registered this proximity and the length of time. So using that technology, we will know who Mary has seen on the bus for how long. So that way we can register the number of contacts and its length, and we know it's with John, someone that Mary likes to spend time with. So it is a preferred interaction, if you see what I mean. So most of the stuff that I've been talking about so far is tools that are used to monitor Mary. Now, how do we actually improve Mary's well-being? So it's all good to be able to monitor every move that Mary makes, but then how do you actually encourage her to be more sociable, more active, independent, healthy, self-confident, and mindful? I'm sure in your portfolio of solutions, there are already products that will help us do that and bring Mary out of the home and make her more sociable. This is self-explanatory, I suppose. It's smart home technology. It can be used for various purposes, for Mary's safety, for monitoring Mary, Mary's moving around the house easier, and control of appliances. And we'll be collecting a lot of data about Mary's well-being and health using that technology.
There's a lot of smart fabrics out there that monitor various vital signs. You've seen lots of examples of them. And they use various sensor technology and the body area networks to relay all this vital information around Mary to the CAMUS, which is the Knowledge Management and Early Warning System. And the last one is gamified well-being assessments. One of the lessons we learned during the pilot phase of Healthy Villages was that when we use this well-established, well-researched method of well-being assessment called WEMWEBs, we were getting irreproducible and unreliable results from same individuals based on the conditions that they presented to them, the time of the day, the person who was presenting the statements to them. So we thought, okay, hang on a minute, how can we rectify this? Why is this reliable? We know it's a reliable technique. So we thought, okay, the methodology that's being used to present these statements to Mary is not uniform. How can we change that? So we thought if we can somehow connect these particular statements from WEMWEBs to particular actions in a game and turn that into a cognitive game, if Mary plays that, theoretically we should get the results of the WEMWEBs at the end of the game. So thank you. I'd like to repeat myself in saying they just represent a starting point, these challenges, and we're not at all claiming it to be a comprehensive list. Thank you very much. Of course.
Yeah. I'd just like to follow up on that because while Hamid was talking, it struck me that a small anecdote might be in order. My main career before I was research director was as a clinician in rehabilitation, and I used to be the head of a department that was often described as the assistive technology department. And I used to balk at that because actually, in my view, I was the head of a clinical department that used assistive technology. And I think that that's important today because we are necessarily focusing a lot on technology and digitization. But the question that I'd like to pose for myself is, what did we want out of today? What we want out of today is we wanted today to have presented to you enough of a picture that we can continue in a dialogue. And I want to emphasize what Hamid's just said, is that you may think that the digital approach that we've taken here with the CAMUS and the personal thing, you might think that's completely bonkers. And that's fine, because we are very happy for it to be complete bonkers if it leads us to a place where we can really begin to understand how technology will be useful to Mary. The question I have in my mind, and an open question for us, is that in the future, do we think that technology and digital technology will play a significant role in this overall scenario? I can't help but feel that the answer to that has got to be yes. The question is, how does that happen? And that's really the open question that we have today. So what I'd like to say is, don't particularly take too much notice of what we're talking about. Use it as a framework to frame your own thoughts. There are a lot of comments we had in the first round were about, well, you know, where's the person in all this? There's not enough interactions. Fantastic feedback, and we're very happy that that's come. Let's take that now and let's move it forwards to a place that either takes some of these ideas or doesn't take some of these ideas, but takes us to the place where we start answering the question. And when Hamid showed you the feedback form that we've got, what we're saying there is we want to work in partnership with you in moving forwards to move this agenda forward, to understand what it is that we all need to be doing, working together. So when Hamid said, give us your ideas, what we mean is give us permission to begin to discuss the future with you. So.
Thank you, Clive. So at this point, we want to have a slightly longer brainstorming session because we have more on that list. There's 16 challenges there, and if you would like to add to that anything else that you think we've missed, by all means do that. What I want you to do in the next 20 minutes is to do a
quick brainstorming at each table and think of two things. What do you want us to tell you? What do you need to know from us to be able to perhaps come up with solutions or tailor your already existing solutions to resolve any of these challenges that we presented to you? And second question is, please tell us any comments that you may have around these particular challenges that we presented. So you must all have a list of 16 in front of you now, and you're being provided with more paper as we speak. So please spend the next 20 minutes doing that, and then what we'll do is that in the next half, we're just going to go from table to table and ask you to basically mention the top 3 comments or the questions that you have for us, and hopefully between us we'll be able to answer those questions, and if not, we promise you that we'll go back, find the answers and get back to you. And that's why it's so important to put the names of the people next to the ideas or the comments that you come up with so that we can chase it up. Thank you.
So it means that people get this is the standard integration into our system. This is the standard integration into the system. This is the standard integration into our system. So I'm not sure what's wrong with what's the integration standard then there's no reason why you should be able to create an app that it's directly. When they did their condition and what it is, and it automatically thought only because it moves it's gone over the relevant how the system can do it. Actually, it says this is the you get it send the board into the gym, send it over.
Oh, there's an alarm. Vitality pump.
I used to manage to if we want to get lots of things,
So I started all my conversations and asked people what they do and then my
Developing and building, learning,
That's a pretty good list.
We've paid for these biscuits. Do we just keep them?
I don't know. We'll have to ask the question now. Because there was 2 baskets, wasn't there? I don't know what happened to the other one. They've probably taken it away already.
It means taking them upstairs and putting them in the Healthy Village room. I'm just saying, if we paid for those...
I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's in
Yeah, because I don't know what that is. You don't need it.
Okay, I'm going to address this point first.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah. Let's get some, yeah.
Let me still find it. It's which one will mine be? Open Windows Explorer. Do you know which one it is? Is it E or F? That's not it. Okay. That's it. What you want is overview.
You sort by type.
By type? Yeah, you do that then. Yeah.
No, these all the ones that are similar. Oh, is it PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's a video.
Which one? Well, you come and choose it because I don't know which one it is. Does it play then?
Yeah, if you work this is the
I have no idea.
Healthy 1, 2, 3.
Lowercase all.
Till H and then healthy 1, 2, 3.
That's the one, yeah?
Yeah. Right, you're ready.
Okay. Right, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to show you another short video. We're trying to be dynamic and adaptive to what we're hearing, and a lot of people have said to us, we're sort of surprised about the sort of digital side taking away from the human interaction. In a sense, we are unashamedly today are here to talk about what is the potential for digital within this context, and so understandably there's going to be a focus on that. But what we've got here now is a video which explains healthy villages in a slightly different way. I find that interesting. Just
over the next 20 years, the number of people in Birmingham aged 75 and above will more than double, leaving more of us living with long-term, complex health needs. This is Mary. She's 78 and lives in Shard End. Mary suffers from emphysema, a disease that makes it breathe. She also has chronic kidney disease. Mary was coping very well with her long-term health conditions until her husband George passed away last year. She is now lonely, depressed, and increasingly socially isolated. Mary sees regularly, but multiple complex needs make it impossible to discuss each of her issues in a 10-minute appointment. When she can't get an appointment with a GP and doesn't know how to cope with her problems, she calls for an ambulance. She becomes so distraught on admission that it makes it challenging for unfamiliar nurses and doctors to truly understand her needs. Mary gets frustrated. In 2 hours she's moved from A&E to a clinical decision. She often ends up on a ward where she complains of having to explain her problems over again to each new doctor or nurse who sees her. Episodes of acute hospital admission, Mary and her family think that it may be best for her to move into a care home. But imagine if it didn't need to. Healthy Villages is launching a new way of providing complete care which aims to address all aspects of Mary's health and well-being, centred around providing her with a ring of confidence that takes into account her circumstances. Patients who may be able to benefit from the complete care approach will be identified by a range of professionals, including GPs, social workers, district nurses, mental health teams, and other services based in the local community. One of our community support workers will ensure that Mary can access appropriate services locally. Agencies involved in Mary's care and well-being, along with her accountable lead clinician, will together design a care and well-being plan which is jointly produced and agreed with Mary's input and consent. Mary will be supported by her primary and community team who will help to ensure that together they manage her health and well-being effectively. If Mary needs help, she has a key contact who she can call, reducing the need for her to go into hospital. So, what wider wellbeing services did we link Mary into? Well, she starts to attend a lunch club once a week, along with a befriending volunteer from a local partner community group, and in the summer will be starting a weekly walking class through the active. Mary now feels that she is part of a connected neighbourhood, and that she no longer needs to move into a care home. Care and support is being delivered as close to her home as possible, with additional help when it is needed from SPA Plus. SPA Plus is Birmingham Community Healthcare's single point of access, a care and well-being coordination centre which, along with access to a range of village activities, also coordinates access to community-based care and crisis services such as the Rapid Response Team, and in the near future, access to short-stay community medical assessment units. Healthy Villages brings together health, local authority and community-based partners with the aim of enhancing the overall well-being of people in our communities, and provides alternative support aimed at preventing avoidable hospital admissions and long-term residential care. If you're interested in finding out more about Joined Up Care or Healthy Villages, please visit healthyvillages.org.uk.
Okay, so I hope you found that added to the whole picture. So now we're going to take our feedback from your discussions. So to just to continue to reframe the whole thing, what we're looking for is to find out how we might work with you to move from what you've just seen towards some version of what you saw in the earlier video, even if it's a completely different version and nothing like the one that you saw. So if I may start with this table, what are we doing? Top 2 points, did you say? 2 or 3?
Yeah, top 2 or 3.
Okay, who would be kind enough to speak? Would you?
Thank you. And if there are any questions, we'll try to answer them here amongst us.
Okay, we've come up with quite a few questions here, but one of the first things was don't reinvent the wheel. Go out there and find out what's already out there, because there's a lot out there that's been shown on there today that we've already got both within the city suppliers. We talked about procurement slightly, and we mentioned about procurement, and when we're actually looking at solutions, we should be actually not going for one supplier. So when we put in a spec out, we should be actually, if there's 3 suppliers that can get together to develop that spec like a consortium, I don't know whether you do allow consortiums on your procurements, then it should be allowed to have 2 or 3 suppliers working together to actually give you the overall solution. The other thing we felt important with technology is about actually ensuring that the staff themselves can use the technology, and the managers within the care trusts and the local authorities, because I've done a lot of work on projects, and we've identified that a need for ensuring that the staff themselves.
A person. Sense fundamental to this discussion today is there a scenario which says some sort of digital can do and some of the stuff that we're talking about here?
Can I then ask another question? Will this digital be able to ask a question after an answer is received, bearing in mind the body language and various other things? Can a digital application recall those kind of things?
Well, that's a question that you need to address to the people who are in this room, because that is the best description of what today is about that we've had so far.
Do exist, Cortana and Siri, with regards to voice recognition.
Yeah.
The consequential impact of receiving an answer to ask an informed question after that becomes quite challenging around machine learning. What did I hear in the context for which I heard the response? Then you have to add in the visual elements. So if you ignore the voice and then just look at visual, yes, you can go to a shop and stand in front of a mirror and see an item of clothing on you in that mirror. And technically, so long as the machine can read body image, which it's consumer-based services can do it now, but the underlying technology is starting to form itself. There's a big journey between taking those underlying technologies, voice recognition, imaging, and making this for a digital to replace what actually is the core of healthy living.
Sorry, just from that, then looking at the picture that you displayed earlier on in your presentation, where we saw many years ago how people used to integrate into the community, how will that digital system create that? Because we're ignoring all the community resources that already exist that are doing it anyway.
Don't forget, we're not answering all the questions today.
Yeah, I think you have to ask to what extent do digital tools truly replace human interaction. Humans are thirsty for other human interactions. So without doubt, we have